to the All-Canadian Reptile Girl. I'm Annalise, and this is Tessara, one of my terrific Dumerils Boas. In today's video, we'll be talking about what is, in my opinion, the most underrated pet snake. And it isn't these guys. Let's find out who it is. Okay, so you hear all the time about how Dumerils Boas are so underrated. I might have even said something to that effect myself in the past, but I've got to tell you, that's simply not true. Don't get me wrong, Dumerils Boas are awesome snakes. They are big, strong, and impressive, but very gentle. They are great eaters, but they don't eat too often, so they won't break the bank. I feed Tessara every 2 months, and look at the size of her. Lazy pays off, I suppose. Speaking of lazy, if you want a snake that will curl up with you in your lap while you binge watch your favorite TV show, this is the snake for you. They are excellent cuddlers, which she is trying to do right now, but I'm not sitting, so she can't. If you still aren't convinced about how awesome they are, check out what Adam Wickens or Clint from Clint's Reptiles has to say about them. Their opinion is not unique. Virtually every person I have met or spoken to that has had or does have experience with Dumerils Boas raves about them. So why don't I think they're underrated? Because virtually every person I have met or have spoken with that has or has had experience with Dumerils Boas raves about them. Are they as common as they should be given how awesome they are? No, probably not. Although I suspect this will change. But are they underrated? No. Hard to make a case for them being underrated when they are pretty universally thought of as awesome, yeah? So what is the most underrated snake? Should I really be asking that question? I mean, they've probably seen the thumbnail and the title of the video and everything, so...
Do you know what you're doing for the thumbnail or title?
Oh, no. Okay.
So maybe they don't.
Okay, that's fair. Well, Macklots python. It's Macklots python. Hang on, let me go get one so I can show you. Here is Hobbes, my male Macklots python, and this guy is awesome. Macklots generally get between 7 to 9 feet. Males are usually a little bit smaller and more at the 7-foot end of the spectrum. But Hobbes at 8.5 feet is a big boy, which is what I said in my first video about Hobbes about 1.5 years ago when he was much smaller. Females are generally much bigger than males. So at 7.5 feet, Hobbes is a big boy. Makes me wonder if the information about these guys is as up to date as it should be. More on that in a minute. As long as he is, he's actually pretty slender. A similar length reticulated python, Burmese python, or boa would be significantly chunkier. Even though he is relatively slender, he is still very strong. You don't have to hold on to Hobbes, he holds on to you. He's my backpack. Brian Barczak has a gigantic Macklots that he's described as pound for pound the strongest snake he has ever held. In the wild, they are found in many islands off Southeast Asia, parts of Indonesia and Papua New Guinea. Many sources that I've found say that they are in coastal parts of northern Australia as well, but any list of Australian snakes that I've found does not include Macklots pythons, so maybe not, I don't know. Any Aussies out there watching, let me know if you've seen Macklots down under, okay? Thanks. Macklots were first described in 1844 by French herpetologist André-Marie Constant Dumeril. If that name sounds familiar, that's because the Dumerils Boa I had at the beginning of the video was also named in his honor. Dumeril named the Macklots python after a German naturalist named Heinrich Christian Macklot. Yeah, it kind of seems like there were just a bunch of European good old boys traveling the world and naming animals after each other, and then killing and eating them, because that's what everyone did. Ooh! New animal! I'll name it after you, and now I'll kill it and eat it. Some suppressed rage coming out there.
Yeah, maybe.
Anyway, back to the actual snake. At a glance, Macklots don't look super flashy. You don't get all the sorts of different morphs like you do with ball pythons or retics, but if you look more closely, you will see that they are actually really cool looking. First off, they are covered in lots of very small scales, which makes them extremely soft. Callie, my female Macklots, feels like velvet. She is so unbelievably soft. I love this digital camo look, but outside in the sun, they're just out of this world. I did a video about their iridophores and how they shimmer like a rainbow in the sun. Just trust me, the camera does not do them justice. Hobbes is unbelievably gorgeous in sunlight. Macklots are very active and curious snakes, and Hobbes is quite easily the smartest snake I have. He's also very easily distracted. He is interactive and communicative. He is also on my head. He does a great job of telling us when he wants to come out. He kind of just looks at you through the glass and like bumps it to get your attention. And when he's had enough and wants to go home, he puts his nose against one of my ears or my eyes and gives a mighty pfft. It must be like a Macklots python thing because Kelly does the exact same thing. But sorry, I digress. Outside time in the yard is a blast. On the ground, he follows us around like a puppy. And he loves climbing on the patio umbrella or in the climbing tree we made for him. And he's just so much fun. So Macklots are gorgeous. They are a good sized snake without being too big to manage. They are very smart and active and are also very hardy and great eaters. They need a fair amount of space, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but aside from that, their care requirements are not difficult. So why aren't these guys super popular?
I don't know. Internet?
Well, for starters, there is not too much good information out there on them. There is a bit, but not a lot, and some of what is out there is not helpful. Look at this. This is the third entry when I googled Macklots python. Yeah, that's a Brazilian rainbow boa. That is the wrong size, the wrong color, the wrong family of snake, and the wrong side of the planet. But here's my favorite bit here. Macklots pythons apparently grow to 7 meters long. That's a 23-foot snake. You've got a ways to go there, pal. So some of the info out there is less than reliable, but I think the real reason that Macklots are not very popular as pets is that they come with a little bit of baggage regarding their temperament. Overall, Macklots have a reputation for being less than friendly. The consensus you might see online has been that without a lot of effort and socialization, they are all ill-tempered and defensive, especially in their enclosure. They don't really like being handled and are best to be left alone. Unless it's a stunning display species, who wants a snake they can't handle, right? Baby Macklots are especially known to be very, very grumpy, but I'm just gonna kind of skip over the spirited as a baby piece of this. The world is a very scary and confusing place for a brand new noodle, and baby snakes of any species can be sassy. I can attest to this. I have baby and adult snakes and regular volunteer hours at a reptile shop. No adult snake at the store or in my home has ever struck or bitten me in defense, but I cannot say the same for the babies. I've been struck or bitten by baby corn snakes, baby bull snakes, king snakes, hognoses, garter snakes, just all the babies, and yeah. So citing baby Macklots pythons as bitey is kind of a just irrelevant statement, but grumpy adults, yeah, we can talk about that. So the question is this overall nasty reputation deserved? Well, Hobbes is about as friendly a snake as you can get. He's not defensive in the least. He loves coming out. He even lets me give him kisses. He just seems to really like meeting new people. So how much work did my family and I have to put in to make Hobbes this sweet and handleable and friendly? None. Like, at all. The very first time I met Hobbes at the pet store in Pointe Claire, Quebec, this is what he was. He was just like this. Cuddled up all around me, smooshing all up in my face. Not what one might expect from a difficult species to socialize. He's an absolute favorite at birthday parties and live shows. Speaking of birthday parties, I have a party tomorrow I need Hobbes to be fresh as a daisy for, so he will be the best snake and reptile ambassador out there. So let's switch it out. You get to go home, baby boy. There, big difference in size from Hobbes, eh? So back to their behavior. Maybe Hobbes is an exception. I mean, there are always exceptions, right? Well, earlier this year, I picked up this beautiful little lady as a girlfriend for Hobbes, but she's not quite old enough to meet him yet. The person selling the snake claimed that she was super sweet and very friendly, blah, blah, blah. When you're dealing with folks from Kijiji, you have to take what they say with a grain of salt sometimes. Except I didn't need to with Callie. She was exactly as advertised. Super gentle, just very curious, and went right up to my face to see what all of us were about, exactly like Hobbes, right from the get-go. Now, Callie is not quite as confident as Hobbes, but she is just as friendly. Actually, you know what? Scratch that. She is more friendly. Hobbes will bump at the door or glass when he wants out. If we don't let him out, he will just go and pout and refuse to come out for a while. Callie, on the other hand, will lay at the door, and when you make eye contact, she will start pacing back and forth like a puppy and will zip right out onto your shoulders. She's so very sweet. That's actually what she did. She was digging when I went up to her enclosure today, and I put my arm, I rested it on the lip of her enclosure, and she just came out. So for an aggressive species, I'm 2 for 2 with 2 completely unrelated snakes that are both super friendly. Anomalies? Well, they aren't unique. I mentioned Brian Barczyk's Macklots Macklemore earlier, and he said that he's super docile and has never struck at anyone. The Virginia Aquarium has Mac, the Macklots that they use as an animal ambassador, handing him off for kids to handle. You don't do that unless you are 1000% certain that that snake is okay to be handled by a child. So what's the deal? I don't know, but I have a hypothesis, and I think it has to do with how we are stimulating that big brain of theirs. So first off, I noticed that a lot of footage out there that I see online, particularly from folks who specifically cite Macklots as grumpy, seem to be keeping them in low terrestrial enclosures. Some have a few enrichment items, some are pretty bare. But generally what I see is a lot of setups like ball python. But Macklots pythons are not ball pythons. Ball pythons are mostly nocturnal ambush predators and generally do a lot of hunkering down like a scaly loaf of bread, which could be why they're able to do so well in minimalist enclosures. Now, I don't want to get into anything about how you should or shouldn't keep your ball pythons, but many people have kept them and still do with not a whole lot of enrichment. And it does not seem to make them particularly cantankerous when they are kept this way. But Macklots pythons are diurnal, active hunters that we know spend a huge amount of time in the trees and are constantly moving through their environment on the ground, in the water, in the canopy. They are figuring out the best way to get from here to here to here in order to nab a rodent on the ground or a bird in the trees. Denying them the opportunity to exercise their bodies and their brains in a way that emulates what they do in the wild creates boredom, which leads to stress, and that could manifest itself in the spicy behavior that is commonly associated with Macklots. We just haven't been keeping them right. At least, that's my hypothesis. And here's why I think it has merit. Brian Barczyk houses his snakes in big, elaborate enclosures, but a whole lot of them are housed in bins too. I've never seen Macklemore's setup, so I asked Brian on Instagram about the setup. I wasn't really expecting a reply, and he answered within an hour, which was pretty cool of him. Apparently, Macklemore is in an enriching enclosure with a lot of climbing opportunities, and he regularly gets exercise outside of his enclosure. So that's pretty cool. Having seen the enclosures in the Virginia Aquarium firsthand, I am certain that Mac, their ambassador Macklots, has an awesome home there as well. And here's how I keep my Macklots. This is Hobbes' home. I did a video on this build over the summer. You know the drill. As you can see, we really leaned into the vertical space with all these branches for him to coil around and cruise through. He's got tons of options to get from point A to point B. If he's not feeling like suspending from little branches, he's got broad, flat shelves that he can curl up on or move around. He's got a hot hide up here, a cool hide down here at the bottom, and another in the middle just so that he has options. He's only been in here a few months, but he seems pretty happy. Let's go check out Callie's home. Callie's previous owner was a very experienced keeper and had Callie in a roomy PVC with lots of stuff in it. With us, Callie was in a 4-foot PVC for her quarantine, which didn't have a lot of height, but even though it was fairly low, we put in lots of branches for her to move around, and it did the job for a while. But we recently moved her here, into Hobbes' old enclosure. My dad will have to redo the name tag there, just not right now. This is not the final form. That's right, she'll get an upgrade in the spring. It's like you guys know me. How funny is that? But for now, it's got the most important thing for Callie: height and stuff to let her explore vertically. Enrichment is not limited to the enclosure, at least not with Macklots pythons. We take both Callie and Hobbes out several times a week. Enrichment time is a lot of just hanging out on us or letting them do their thing. What they like to do is to hold on with their back half using us as a base and then use their front half to explore whatever is around them. I'm sure you saw that today in the video. Behind the cushions on the couch, the shelves, the log, or whatever else they can find and mischief that they can get into. They kind of just poke around for a bit, come back, then poke around somewhere else. Eventually they'll get bored and move on to another member of the family and do it all over again. Or they'll ask to go home. We will also sometimes provide them with new things to climb. We stack a couple of stools together and let them wind all through them and watch the cats. They really seem to like that. And I'm pretty sure that's how Oscar and Hobbes are friends now. And then there are also outside activities that I mentioned earlier, but you know, you can't do that now. It's Canada. Poor guys. Guys, I honestly could talk about Macklots all day, but we all have things to do. Yeah, I can't stay here all day. Suffice to say that Macklots are gorgeous snakes. They are big enough to be impressive, but not too big as to be scary or difficult to handle. They are active and curious snakes that are fun to watch both in their enclosure and out. And with proper enrichment and socialization, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a cooler snake to hang out with than Hobbes or Callie. Okay, whoops. I kind of spaced on a bit of important info. I got all the way through writing and filming the video and didn't realize until I was almost done editing and filming a bit of B-roll. You can't see that, it's fine. You'll see it in the B-roll. But I completely forgot to mention a couple of really cool subspecies of Macklots. So I'm sorry, but at least I remembered. If you think that a snake like Hobbes might be something that is right for you, but are a little concerned at the size, you could consider one of the two other smaller species of Macklots pythons. Or I guess they could have both. Like, there isn't like a, you can only have one. You can get what snakes you want to get as long as you research them properly and house them properly.
What are the subspecies, Annalise?
The dunce python and the savu python. Both are kind of just smaller versions of this guy. I think they cap out at around 5 or so feet. They also live in the same part of the world and in the same biomes as the nominate species, and have similar care requirements and behavior. Probably. Finding a lot of good information out there is tricky, and yeah. Savu pythons seem to be the more common of the two species as domestically produced pets and are gorgeous. As babies, they start out as a beautiful orange color, shifting to a green as they age, and their eyes are like this whitish silver color. They are stunning. Sorry for kind of shoehorning them in here. They really should have had a bit more fleshed out segment, but I'm sure I'll be talking about these guys again. Okay, now back to the rest of the video. Sorry. So, what do you think? Do you agree with me that Macklots are vastly underrated? Any Macklots owners out there with similar experiences to what I've got here? Or do yours fall into the grumpy category? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear because I really want to get some other people to weigh in on this. I think with more domestically produced snakes, like what we are planning to do with mine when Callie gets a bit bigger, we'll see more and more wonderful, calm, and friendly Macklots in the hobbies, which is pretty great, I think. Don't you? Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me and Callie and Hobbes and Tasara. And until next time, remember to nurture all nature. Bye! I'm sorry. We have to film with you. Jump back, talking man. Tonight at 11. Doom! I think they cap out about, don't hit your head on the TV. I think they cap out, footage you see online, particular from, my mouth does not want to speak clearly today. She's crushing my rib cage. I hope you appreciate this. Was that your heart? No. This is my blindfold. Well, she's proper scarf.